Hey, Scarlett. This is Christy Blanchard. Yes. Hi, Unconventional Musings. Hey. Okay. I need y'all, as always, to start off the night by tapping away. One way that we can get the live moving and grooving is if you start throwing some, hearts, stars, flowers, whatever, cones. Just get those going so that people can get interested. Lightning bolts, whatever, dinosaurs, whatever is your fancy, roses. Nothing big, just whatever you got, and keep on tapping. Do some pointless polls. Thank you for the dolphin. Those are cute. All right. We're gonna go. We're gonna get to 10,000. Are we gonna get to 10,000 fast? So I don't know about her gums. I've never actually seen her smile like this, so I don't know. That's just how she smiles. No, I don't really floss. My teeth are fine. I floss sometimes, but not all the time. Okay. This is a photo of her from the book signing. Yes, Halaman. You are correct. You're waiting to see them. Yeah, Anna sent me the link, so I have all 289 photos. I can confirm there were definitely not 300 people there, like Bree said. Many of the photos are duplicates. She did multiple photos with same people. I would say there's probably 200 people. It is unclear how many shirts that she owns. Hi, Valerie. Hey, Vicky Vaughn. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Granny. Warrior Bunny. All right. I don't think that these were extras. I want to be honest. You guys, I know there's a lot of speculation that these were extras, but it wasn't an extra. Reality television doesn't really do that. Not these kinds of series. This is a very low budget series, very low budget. So you're not going to see that kind of stuff. This is for Dee Dee Blanchard. So I wanted to do some talking because Miss Christie has this tendency to play the victim. In my opinion, there's 289 photos, like I said. Okay. And a lot of them are duplicates. The people that were there said that they didn't hear numbers beyond 200. Okay. So, I was thinking, I just saw Bree's photograph in here. That was gross. Where is Bree? Yuck. Ew. You're gross. Okay. All right. So that's not really what this live is about, though. Okay, Hannah. They didn't take out her salivary glands because Dee Dee said she should take them out. And they also didn't take them out because Dee Dee put Orajel in her mouth. If Gypsy would actually read the medical records, she would know that. And she would also know that the Orajel that she claims that her mom gave her, Orajel topical it doesn't numb you for more than 15 minutes. It doesn't make you drool. And it definitely wouldn't make your tongue swell, nor would it make you pool saliva in the back of your throat. Her salivary glands, only one set were actually removed. Gypsy says that they were all removed, but she had a single set removed. No, she had them extracted. She had one set extracted, the ones that are in the back of her throat. No, this is not a case of Munchausen's by proxy. She had one set removed. Gypsy has what's called hypotonia, Hannah, and sitting in a wheelchair to get free shit actually doesn't hurt you. The wheelchair was a grift, and Gypsy's lying that she had to stay in it all the time. If you saw the state of the house, you would know that there was no way to move a wheelchair in their house. All right. Ear infections were common. She does have some muscle atrophy, actually, minimal, but she has lesions in her spine, CNS lesions like syrinx, and then she has hypotonia. But let's talk more about this. I'm gonna have to turn off the comments, or else I'm gonna have to get someone up here so I don't get distracted here. It says I only have 3 viewers. You know me, Trisha, wink. Okay, goodbye. If you have 0 followers and you're in here trying to wink at people, I know that you're Bree. You count as 3 people. Hi, JJ. Thank you, JJ. Hey, everyone. I'm doing good tonight. How are you? It's weird. Oh, wait, there's my viewers. Should I see if Bree with the turds is in here? Bree without the facts? Bree without the facts, are you in here? Bree without the facts. Are you in here? I know, I was just kidding, JJ. Bree without the facts, are you in here? All right. Because I have a story to tell you about Gypsy, stepmom. This is literally just a photograph that was like taken at the event that was on Friday night. If you want to check, I did 2 videos today. I have a mod in the chat right now. Scarlett is here, so I'm good. And I can let Faith know, but I don't know where she is. Usually she's on it. Ray just, okay, so let's start. 4 days ago, Miss Blanchard, Christy Blanchard, she put a video on her TikTok, and it was a victim narrative. See, in my opinion, and in the 5 years that I knew Christy, there was no one that was a bigger victim of the world than Christy Blanchard, of everyone. Christy Blanchard was the victim of everyone, and so was Gypsy. And everyone was out to get them, had it all wrong, and every single person that ever said anything negative about Gypsy was deemed, or her, a hater and jealous. And Christy's favorite thing to say in the time that I knew her is that people that speak negatively about Gypsy are just haters that are jealous of her fame. They're just jealous that she's famous. This is how delusional, in my opinion, the Blanchards are. They don't believe that people that report on Gypsy that don't agree with them, they don't believe those people have a right to disagree. They don't believe that anyone has a right to have a different opinion of the facts or of the case. They don't even believe the facts of the case, quite honestly, because they spin the narrative. Rod and Christy have spun. It isn't even what Dan Patterson, the district attorney in Springfield in Greene County, said. Dan Patterson never once said that Gypsy's choice to unalive her mother was justified. In fact, in a statement that they issued when they did the plea deal, Dan Patterson said it was not justified, and that even if she had been harmed in any way by her mother, none of that justified what Gypsy had done. None of it. It was not self-defense. Gypsy was in no imminent threat that night. There was no reason to believe she would have ever been unalived herself. She had already made it nearly 24 years without getting even close to death. And Dan Patterson said he had enough evidence that if he would have gone to trial, Gypsy would have been convicted of first-degree murder. She was only given a reduced sentence as a mitigating circumstance. Sentence mitigation does not equal that it was justified. It's just something that is considered for why a sentence should be reduced. It's sort of like what's happening with the Menendez brothers. They are seeking a reduced sentence. They're not saying they're not guilty. They're just saying The totality of the facts are this, and this needs to be considered. And what the Blanchards look at and how they view it is, no, mitigating factors actually mean that you're telling us that Gypsy was justified to do this. Christy Blanchard has told me that she is glad that the bitch Dee Dee is dead. Christy Blanchard was told by Gypsy that she tried to unalive her with a BB gun in 2011, before Gypsy had ever met Nicholas Godejohn. Gypsy lied to her dad and lied to Christy and misrepresented what occurred at her house. And then Christy and Rod had their own agenda. You see, Christy and Rod knew about the entire scam the whole time. They knew that Dee Dee was pretending to have Gypsy in a wheelchair so they could make money, so they could get free stuff. And you see, they also knew Gypsy could walk. They knew that Gypsy had some medical problems, but they knew that most of what they were doing as far as like getting free stuff was a con. So Christy, when the case broke and it went into Facebook, there was a Facebook group that was started by a woman named Belinda. And very, very early on, like the day that they were even declared missing people, immediately people in the chat in the Facebook group started asking questions about who's Dee Dee, who's Gypsy, because at this point they thought that Gypsy was still missing. And there was also a lot of questions of where the hell is the father? A lot of people were starting to say, well, if she's a disabled young girl, like why isn't her father making a bulletin? Why isn't he notifying people that his daughter is missing? Why is there nothing about the father? And there was literally nothing by the father. And prior to this, Christy and Rod kept Gypsy a secret from most of their friends and family. Only people that knew them years and years and years before had any idea that Rod had a daughter named Gypsy. Many of their friends and family had no clue that Rod had a daughter named Gypsy. Rod and Christy rarely ever posted about her, and Christy would often refer to her, if she did, as Rod's daughter, never her stepdaughter. So, Christy saw in the Facebook groups after Dee Dee's body was found and people started looking into who Gypsy was and what they were doing, the police did a press conference and the police said things are not always as they seem, okay? And I just want to say, like, when the sheriff in Greene County, he said things are not always as they seem, okay? So what I would tell you is that sheriff is correct, and today that still holds true. So just because you think you know a story, things are not always as they seem. They just aren't. So when he did that press conference, there was a lot of questions. Like, some people on the Facebook were quick to say that Dee Dee was victimizing Gypsy and Gypsy was a victim of Munchausen's by proxy. Now, I want to be super clear. No one that knew them directly, that had been in their life for like 10 years, was saying that. Some of these claims were coming from internet sleuths that were trying to piece things together without medical records, without documentation, with just assumptions. And you all know better than me that when you and I make assumptions, we often can look like asses. MJ Pack, who had a blog on Thought Catalog, got this wild hair up her ass that it was Munchausen's by proxy. MJ Pack inserted herself into the case and even called the police to give them this theory. I don't know about you, but I don't know many journalists that get involved in stories to like file reports and try to give a motive when they don't even know any of the people involved. So MJ Pack's Thought Catalog is really kind of what propelled people to assume that this was Munchausen's by proxy, even though there was no proof. And individuals that knew Dee Dee, including a woman named Sue Borderlone, who was friends with Gypsy and Dee Dee, and her kids grew up with them when they were still in Louisiana. Sue said it was all a scam. It wasn't Munchausen's. Gypsy did have specific health conditions, but certain things were done. So Gypsy and Claudine could go on and get donations. So they decided to make assumptions about what they had before they even knew what it was. And as the sheriff said, things are not always as they seem. So Christy and Rod specifically, when everyone started throwing out that this was possible Munchausen's, immediately these Facebook groups were like, where the fuck was the dad? Like, how could a dad abandon a child and let that child have to go through hell? Where was he? And so Rod was labeled a deadbeat that abandoned a disabled child. And that if Dee Dee was a monster, he left her with a monster. Now, in the very early days, Christy was really notorious, very, very notorious for picking fights with people in these groups and yelling and screaming at them. And she actually started doxing people almost day one. So I think they were arrested like June 15th or 16th, I believe. And Christy was in these groups around that time, doxing people that spoke against her and Rod. So all of the content that you're seeing by Bree, by her little cronies like Sheena and Dreamer and that whole crew, Boston, whoever's in that Motley Crue, Crystal, that doxing was, and that mentality to dox and retaliate, that is not from Gypsy. It is not from a Dee Dee mindset. This is the brainchild of Christy Blanchard. She decided day one that she was going to retaliate against anyone. Okay, June 15th. Thank you, Fancy. So Christy decided on day one that the retaliation against anyone that spoke about things, they were going to retaliate. So Sue Borderlawn, who was friends with Claudine and Gypsy back in the day, said, no, the wheelchair stuff, that's all for fraud. It's all for free stuff. Everyone knows it's a con. This is just something that was done. She shaved her head, said she had cancer, but that was really just to get free stuff. And she basically just said, like, Claudine was a single mom, didn't have a lot of money, and was just trying to do her best to provide a life for Gypsy that she couldn't have. So Christy's in these groups, and she's basically yelling and screaming at people. Well, someone in the group ends up posting a screenshot of Christy saying, we knew she could walk. Okay? A screenshot of a comment that Christy said, we knew she could walk. So people immediately assumed that they knew she could walk, and that's what they meant is they knew she could walk. They knew it was a con too. And so then people started accusing Christy and Rod of basically like co-signing and endorsing the fraud, but also saying that if Rod would have not been a deadbeat dad, maybe Dee Dee wouldn't have had to resorting to conning to provide for her daughter. So Christy saw the comment, and that's when a lot of people in these groups turned against her. And then other people from Cutoff, Louisiana, where they were from, who knew Christy and who knew Rod, started speaking up. And one of their friends, who was using like, I don't know, their husband's account, they had a big fight in this group. And the friend basically said that she had been friends with the Christy and Rod for a long time, and they were never told about Gypsy or her existence. So when Dee Dee was found dead, they were blindsided and shocked when Christy suddenly was inserting herself all over the case. And Christy went back and forth fighting with these people and tried to change her story. And where's Veronica? Okay, I got her. So this is where Christy came in. See, but you know that, just want to say, Fancy, I just want you to know I did go back and through all these archives. I spent months after I disconnected from them getting familiar with the backstory. So Christy was in this fight with her friend, and the friend was basically like, Christy didn't tell any one of her friends that she had this kid. Christy never spoke about this kid. No one, most of her friends and family didn't know. And then Christy lost her ever-loving mind. And then Christy was like, well, why, do you tell every person that you know that you have a stepdaughter that's disabled that lives in Missouri? Do I have to tell everyone what my business is? This was very similar to the fact that I was friends with Christy, quote unquote friends, because we were never really friends, for 5 years. And I found out that he had a child named Nicolette. Rod had a child named Nicolette. And Christy never mentioned to me that Rod had another child named Nicolette, ever, until I asked her. So, they have this tendency to hide the illegitimate children. And I want to be clear, Gypsy was not illegitimate. I mean, they got married. I was blindsided by Nicolette. And I was like, oh, were you going to tell me about her? Okay, so Christy got into a fight in these groups, and quickly the story changed to when I said that I knew she could walk, it meant one of Dee Dee's sisters told me she saw her walking years ago. And so we thought that she could walk, but we weren't sure. So the story went from we knew she could walk to we didn't know she could walk. We just heard she could walk. And Christy told me that they didn't know she could walk. They had just heard from one of the siblings, I don't know if it was Dee Dee's sibling or cousin or someone, that they saw Gypsy walking and they let Rod know. But then again, even though they had this information, Christy nor Rod did anything about it. Yeah. So Christy learned very quickly that she was going to be a villain in the story, and so was Rod. So, and by the way, Gypsy in her book writes about how Dee Dee and Rod never had sex, only like 3 times, which, why are you talking about your parents' sex life? That's gross. And who told you that? It was probably Christy, because we already know that Rod's never home. And then when he is home, he doesn't talk. He definitely doesn't do anything but drink. And he doesn't really have much going on upstairs, if you know what I mean. Like, Rod is a simple person. Like, that's just the most nice way to say it. He's not the brightest guy. He's just not. So as I'm like learning all of this, right, and I'm looking through this, he avoids it all, yeah. So when he was with Dee Dee, he would like to frame it like he and Dee Dee met and Dee Dee wasn't from around here, which is just asinine. Dee Dee was from Golden Meadow. Her family actually was not wealthy, but definitely not poor. And Claude was known as he was a cad. Grandpa Claude, Dee Dee's father, was a serial cheater. And if you want to know the story about Bobby Petrie, the only family member from the Petrie side that supports Gypsy, he could be motivated, and you hear me out here. Bobby's motive here to support Gypsy is not altruistic. Bobby has an axe to grind with the Petrie family. Why? Why would Bobby have an axe to grind? Oh, that's right. Because Bobby spent his whole life believing that his dad, who was one of Dee Dee's siblings, was his dad. But later, as he grew up, he actually found out that his dad wasn't his dad. Do you know who his dad was? Does anyone have a guess? Does anyone have a guess? Bobby's dad that was raising him was his brother. Bobby's dad was Grandpa Claude. And Grandpa Claude had an affair with his son's wife and got her pregnant. And so Bobby Petrie has an axe to grind against the Petrie family. And this is why he's all over these documentaries supporting Gypsy, because he was lied to and because his grandfather is really his dad. And Deedee's really his sister. So Bobby is Deedee's youngest sibling. And he's mad that he didn't find out about this until he was much older. Yeah, he's literally the only one on the side, that's why. Okay.
Howdy.
Hi. Okay. So Bobby, how old was Bobby when he found out that he was Deedee's sibling and Claude's child?
God, I don't know. I think he was well into being an adult. I don't know if it came out even before all this went down. I'm not sure.
No, I think he did know when this was all happening.
Well, I know that he knew by the time I went down there, which was 2 years after the crime, so I know that, but I don't know exactly when he found out. I don't remember. But Deedee's not Claude's either, right? So it's not really his sister either.
Who is Deedee's dad?
Emma had an affair.
Is that known?
Yes.
Never heard that.
Yeah. Emma, allegedly, that's what the family has told me. That's what Bobby told me too. Is that Deedee is not Claude's. That's one of the reasons why she was so favored by Emma, was because she was this love child with this other guy that she cheated on Claude with. That's the story. So
let's leave that out though. Like, I don't want to.
I'm just saying.
Okay. Because really, Claude is the two-timer more than anyone. They were kind of swingers. They kind of just, there's kind of this mentality down in the bayou, like, do what I do. Like, we're going to do what we do. Like, I do me, I'll do him, you do her. We won't.
Yeah, because the men are gone for so long. They do what they're going to do at shore, wherever they're offshore at, and then the women do whatever they're going to do back home. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's get the, make sure you get the taps going. And also, you can feel free to send some love with roses or lightning bolts or dinosaurs or gummy bears or anything you can is appreciated to support the hosts. So Bobby Petrie had an axe to grind because he was lied to like his whole fucking life.
Yes.
And Bobby Petrie didn't actually really know Gypsy at all.
He knew Deedee though. He was very close. He and his half sibling, his half sister, were very, very close with Deedee. That was his favorite aunt, according to him.
Like as kids.
Right.
But he didn't really have he didn't have a lot of commentary to add about Deedee and Gypsy's relationship.
No.
And so a lot of what he did add was hearsay or just bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
And a lot of the stuff that he said in prison confessions, I know for a fact he was lying. Like the fact that they told him, oh, this happened. And he's like, oh my God, I didn't know that. Yeah, he did. He did know that. He knew it long before that. So he is, and he is very close with Christy, extremely close with Christy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he has also had an incentive of this. People are like, oh, he was a really, established tattoo artist that was doing really well before the case.
No.
Negative.
Yeah.
He has a good business now because of the clout he has received from this case.
Yeah.
And he charges an obscene amount for tattoos in an area where you don't charge that much for a tattoo.
Yeah.
So he had a lot to gain. And he was the only family member of the Petries that actually supported her parole. I can't message you, Raggedy. If you want to come up and say something, you can come up, but I can't message you. But either way, I hate when that happens. Okay. So Bobby was already looking for something. Christy had an axe to grind because everyone was calling her and Rod, Rod was being called a deadbeat dad and abandoned her. Christy was being called basically a fucking homewrecker because everyone found out that Rod left Deedee when she was pregnant. And then Christy was there, and then Christy had 2 kids. And then people in these groups started finding out from other people in town because you guys, Cutoff and Golden Meadow aren't very fucking big towns. It's a small area. And so people that knew them were just talking shit about Rod, basically saying that Rod was a drunk, he did drugs, he beat people up, he was wild, he cheated on everyone, he cheated on Christy. He had there's lore. There's literal lore that Rod has a million unclaimed children out there.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that I've heard about too.
There's lore. I mean, at one point I heard about 4 others, but I don't know. It's just the lore.
Yeah. I mean, he was definitely, he admits it. He was wild as a weed back then.
And wild as a weed doesn't just mean that he was having fun time with the ladies. It meant he was doing rugs
Yes.
and getting into bar fights.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have stable employment for a while.
Mm-mm.
He definitely wasn't a ship captain. Okay. So he put his like party boy in. And so in the book, I think it's ironic that Gypsy's like somehow like glosses over the fact that her dad wasn't at her birthday or at her birth because he was out tripping on acid and at a concert. Like,
No, not at the concert, at the fish rodeo.
oh, I'm sorry, the fish rodeo.
The rodeo that I didn't know was a rodeo.
So anyway, it's very clear. I want to tell you something. The book was written wasn't written. The book was not written. Gypsy didn't write a single sentence in that book. Gypsy from prison spun tall tales on phone calls with Melissa Moore.
Yeah.
And what Christy did along with Vicki Lewis is they helped Gypsy, get new memories out of her brain, dig up new memories. And they convinced Gypsy that she actually didn't need to do therapy. Vicki Lewis told Gypsy that she didn't need therapy because she could just write the book, and sometimes remembering the truth is as good as therapy. I said, remembering the truth? What?
You've got to be kidding me.
Yes.
Is that where that really came from?
Yes.
Wow.
That came from Vicki.
That makes so much more sense now.
So Gypsy was told by Vicki Lewis, who's an RN, she works in the state of Mississippi, she should lose her license, in my opinion.
Okay, but she's also supposedly a FBI profiler, just so you remember.
I think that was someone else.
No. It's Vicki.
Oh, Vicki definitely is an RN. She works, I don't know, whatever.
Right. No, I'm just saying that's what she told me, so I don't even know anymore.
What Christy uses Vicki for is Christy's a dummy head and doesn't know how to read medical records. She's just not very intelligent or very well educated. And so she relies on Vicki to trade those records to her and gloss over things. But Vicki doesn't actually know as much as you would think she does, because nurses are good, but they're not like doctors.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the kind of specialty you work in. And she isn't a nurse that works actually with patients anymore. She does, she manages like facilities and does like compliance stuff. So she's like one of those people that goes to places and she's like the nursing director kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't she's not dealing with patients on a day-to-day basis. So Vicki was inserted herself into the story because she was touched by Christy's case and just needed a friend, I guess. And so Vicki Lewis, who's her best friend, but I'm not sure that she's actually Christy's best friend, because Christy has 8,000 best friends, and she makes
every best friend. She has people she uses.
Yeah.
That's it.
At the time that I knew Christy had a best friend named Vicki Lewis, another best friend named Kara, who's planting. Sherry Ponder, who's someone she hasn't ever met. She's from Michigan. Her friend Planted Bunny is Kara Harrison. And then she's actually.
Do you know how long they've known each other, Kitty?
Forever.
That's interesting. Okay.
I thought.
Well, yeah. Well, Planted Bunny, we believe that now too. But she tried to tell Ryan Lee she's the one who introduced Ryan Lee to Christy, and she tried to pretend like she didn't really know Christy all that well.
Oh,
I'm coming, baby.
That's what they always say. Okay, so Christy, throughout the years, had a very big story that she needed to tell. And that was that Rod was not a deadbeat dad that abandoned a child with a disability, that didn't pay child support, and that Christy wasn't a home-wrecking wench that kissed Rod on his wedding day to Dee Dee. Now, in the book, Gypsy says that Christy just showed up at the bar and they took a shot. That's not what happened. Christy and Rod were caught outside of the establishment where everyone was at the wedding, sucking tongues. And Dee Dee saw them doing it. So, on her wedding night, her young groom was kissing Christy. Now, interesting to note, in the book, Gypsy says that her mom preyed on Rod. Now, interestingly, Rod actually lied to Dee Dee about his age when they first met. And he was in a bar, but he wasn't 21. So dude had a fake ID. I'm just going to say that. So it's not like Dee Dee sought this guy out That's a fact. He was in a bar. He had a fake ID. She did not believe he was 17. Okay. Now, the age of consent in the state of Louisiana is 16 at the time, so there was nothing illegal. Anyway, no, the book was not a great read. It was actually a work of fiction. Okay. So, yeah, she definitely wasn't purposely looking for a 18-year-old. Okay, so after that, Dee Dee got pregnant, but she wasn't trying to get pregnant, and there wasn't this stupid lore about this book. That's a Christie story. So I want to tell you a secret. Gypsy's book is actually the brainchild of Christie Blanchard. I met Christie in 2019. This was after Christie had had a falling out with Fancy, aka April, the Good Wives Network. She was upset because the Good Wives and Fancy didn't deliver on what she thought she was going to get. She was pissed off about the act because the act portrayed Rod and Christie correctly as absentee family. Like, Rod was accurately portrayed as a fucking deadbeat dad.
Yeah, Christie was livid that she was not included in the act. I mean, livid.
So the act producers and directors and Hulu, they were, and having worked with Netflix, I can understand why they did it this way. But in order for them to do it was a dramatized version of a story, meaning there was certain details that were not accurate, but the totality of the story was correct to what they knew at the time. But not all the things that happened, but it still gave you the scope of how it happened. And they were angry about the act mostly because they weren't paid and everyone was making money on the act but them. And Gypsy was particularly angry, along with Christie, that the act correctly portrayed Gypsy as manipulating a boy with autism into murdering her mother. That made them livid because they believed now they had spent years crafting a narrative that Gypsy was the victim and that Nick was the evil, creepy guy online that was a sexual deviant that lured poor Gypsy, the victim princess, into doing something so horrid and terrible. Well, in the book, Gypsy rewrites history, contrary to her testimony at trial. And I think she's an idiot, honestly, for this book because she's basically perjuring her testimony.
Both books are going to be the downfall of her, in my opinion.
Yeah. So
Lifetime is going to be her downfall.
Yeah. So the problem.
That's her karma.
Yeah. So the problem here is that when you testify at trial and you testify under oath, that's your testimony under the penalty of perjury. If you give a different account of that any other time, you commit perjury. And Gypsy's, oh God. Oh, that's a fake account. GypsyRoseBlanchard.TikTok.
No, that is hers, I think. Or maybe not.
We got 9 followers.
Oh, okay. That's not hers then.
Okay. So where was I at? Oh, so the perjury. So Gypsy testified under oath that it was actually her idea for mostly everything. It was her idea to unalive her mom. It was her idea for Nick to come there. She paid for Nick to come because he didn't have the money. She arranged for him to travel. They discussed various ways and both researched different ways to unalive Dee Dee. Search histories were found on both Nick and Gypsy's computers.
Yes.
Gypsy would like you to believe that it was only Nick searching for this. They found on Gypsy's computer, didn't they find like how to cover up the smell or something?
Yes.
How to cover up the smell of a decomposing body.
Which is why there's baby powder everywhere and the dryer sheets on the beds on 2 layers. Yes.
Yeah. He also did research on different poisons they could use. They looked into different kinds of guns. Now, she at one point said that Nick had said, I think the guns were too loud in the book. She made a new claim and said that we didn't use a gun because it could be traced to us. Like, wow, Gypsy, that's a new story. Because on one of them, she said, we didn't do a gun because it was going to be too loud. Oh, I'm sorry, pew pew. So she actually did research on various poisons. They looked into different options for how they could maybe get her to go to sleep and not wake up, but they couldn't find anything.
And see, that's where I think that Gypsy's lying, Katie, because look, there's a very simple way for her to unalive her mother, walk away from all of this, come out and say, oh my God, my mother has made me do this my entire life, not involve Nicholas, not do any of that. And it was simple. She gave her an additional amount of insulin and she would have fallen into a coma. That's it. So I think that Gypsy's lying about all of that because if it wasn't,
Her story has changed.
right, what I'm saying is if it wasn't as brutal as it was, it wouldn't distract enough from the truth. That's what I think is the part why she chose what they chose.
Be clear to everyone that has questions. And there's a woman in the chat that got really mad and she said that I'm actually committing defamation, but I'm actually talking about court records and testimony in court. We're not actually like defaming someone. We're talking about an actual court case. So there's that. Sorry if you don't know how to read. Can't record your case. I apologize if you don't know how to watch testimony or read police. So Gypsy had made a lot of claims about this. Now she in her book claimed that all of this was found on Nick's computer. That's false. Hi, Pooh.
Hello.
Okay. We have a whole thing about Sheena to talk about in a little bit. So let's
Hi,
talk.
Jessie. Go ahead.
Hey, honey.
Let's talk about this whole thing with the Schmurder weapon. So they settle on the knife, but Gypsy searches in her house and she decides, not Nick, that they don't have one that's good enough. She needs something.
There's an entire drawer of them.
Yep. She needed something that was more, that could be more vicious. So for some reason, she settled on a fillet knife, which is kind of gross when you think about what happened to Dee Dee.
Yeah.
So here's the problem with this case. Gypsy Rose, the fake account said, true, I decided that. Yeah, okay, Gypsy Rose, fake account. You're going to go away. You're distracting.
And for those of you in the chat that are asking about whether the sisters encouraged her to do this book or not, no, they did not. They did not.
Okay, so yeah, here's the deal. Gypsy has said on the act, and I think her testimony at Nick's trial was that she settled on the knife that she got because it was like the closest one she could reach in her wheelchair to knock into her chair. But in the book, she claims that Nick showed her what knife to get. But she testified she went to Walmart, and by the way, she wasn't with her mom, so I thought she couldn't go anywhere by herself.
Beside the fact that she had her own bus pass and people saw her on the bus
Right.
alone.
Yeah. So she goes to Walmart by herself, and then she shoplifts a knife that she is able to knock off and get into her chair. But in the book, she says Nick showed her the knife he wanted her to use.
But what if she didn't even have her chair with her that day?
Yeah, I have no idea if she had her chair or
You
not.
know,
But
like she could
I
have just
don't
walked in, shoplifted, and walked out.
her story is that she had her chair.
Well, yeah, exactly.
No, I know. Like, you can't trust anything she says.
That's her tail, and I'm sitting on mine. Yeah.
So what Gypsy does, if you've stayed around long enough, since I've started, is Gypsy is obsessed with attention, and she creates fantastical stories so that she can appear more interesting, to cover up lies, and to cover up and get ahead of narratives, but also to make herself the perpetual victim of everything. And so
Right.
every year, as she's told the stories, new details are added and it becomes more and more graphic. And she has suffered more and more harm by her mother.
And others.
Yeah. So I'll just be clear to you, Brianna, Sheena, Katie, Rogie, all you idiots, the motley crew of idiots. You will not be immune to being accused of things by Gypsy. Okay?
Nope.
Because they now accuse me of having Munchausen's by proxy. And this is how I knew that it was bullshit against Dee Dee.
But can I ask you why they think you? So, according to them, it's so rare that nobody even detects Munchausen by proxy, and that's why Gypsy was allowed to suffer for so long. But now they're going to just label you? Like, that just seems so coincidental, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They've tried to put something like that on me, too, but.
And they try to frame people for crimes or pull up dirt on them, like they find April's the welfare stuff from like a million years ago for you.
Yeah.
But they
And
fail
tell everybody that I'm a felon when I'm not.
Right. But then they fail to tell everyone, oh yeah, Rod was actually at one point facing 8 years in prison. But look over there. And by the way, so was Gypsy. She just got out of prison. But look over there. Someone got a misdemeanor. So their biggest tool is deflection. And one thing that Gypsy said in the book that is true, but she wasn't talking about her mom. She could have been, but she was also talking about herself, is anytime Dee Dee, according to Gypsy, found herself in a pickle, she was an expert at deflecting it away and getting the attention onto something else. And Christy is so good at that. And so is Gypsy. Now, something that's interesting about this book and about Christy Blanchard is that after the act came out, she was hell-bent on getting a story told. And she wanted it to be her story. But Hulu didn't want to work with them because Hulu didn't want to be influenced.
Right.
Either side, any side, really. They wanted to have the facts of the story without the influence of anyone so that they couldn't be manipulated. Which is actually fair journalism, even though it's not like a true story, right? It's
right. And, well, here's the thing too that nobody knows. That Hulu was still negotiating with them to still pay them, even though they weren't going to give them control or allow them to be involved. And she got mad because they weren't going to allow them to have any creative control. And that's when she got me involved with writing letters to Hulu and cease and desist and asking if we could collaborate since they're working with me, all in the effort of, trying to stop their production because they weren't going to allow them they weren't going to allow them to control the narrative. So then they are the ones that cut off Michelle. It wasn't the other way around. Michelle was still trying to get them paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if you knew that or not.
You, right? Like they used you to try. And this is what Christy does. So
right.
What Christy is very skillful at is she finds people that don't have a ton of experience, but have like a loud voice that are good, that she thinks will fight for them. And that in the immediate being, they believe what she says. But you can only believe what she says for so long until you start to realize that everything that she says smells like poop. Because it's a lie. So, oh my God, why are there foreign people in here now? That's weird.
And the thing is that it was never that I couldn't get it done because of my lack of skills. That is not what happened. I had countless meetings with several different agencies and several different networks and studio heads and things like that. The reason I couldn't get it done was because Hulu had come out. And at that time, I did not have anything that could be different other than, but this is Gypsy's side. And nobody cared. They didn't want that. They were done. The documentaries had been done. Hulu had been done. So I was disadvantaged by that. Everybody kept telling me, come back when you find something new. I was even told by Hulu, when I sent them I sent them something for my pilot, they even said, we wished we'd seen this before we saw the act because we would have done this. So that's the thing. I was handicapped because so much had already been done at that time. And so that's why and then by the time I got to a point where I did have something different, that's when I was at odds with them and they did everything they could to destroy anything that I was working on. And I didn't even know that Christy was doing it until after I found out, once we really stopped being friends at all, that she was going behind my back and trying to contact anyone that I was trying to talk to about this being different. Yeah,
this is where I enter the picture. So after Christy and her fall apart, Christy needs a new ally.
Yes.
And she has another ally named Natasha Cooper, who Christy 100% fucking hates. And now she pretends like she's friends with. But Christy hates Natasha. I want to be clear, hates her. And
I
Natasha,
have to prove that with all the text messages I have about Natasha from her.
I have so many text messages.
So many.
And they call her so many names.
They do.
They make fun of her weight. They make fun of her looks. They talk
But
about
at the same time, though, while she's saying these things to you and me, she's over there chummy with Natasha, saying the same things about us to Natasha. That's the thing.
pitting all of us against each other.
And that's what she's been doing the whole time.
So she's telling me that Fancy's a criminal, Natasha's stupid, but I didn't really like Natasha's style.
No.
Natasha just really got kicked off on YouTube with Gannon, which was deplorable. She's just on every level gross. And Chris hated her until I left her. And then she needed someone else. So she ran back to Natasha, who's got no credibility anymore. And nobody cares what Natasha says anymore. So she's at the bottom of the barrel at this point.
She's lower than I am. I know that.
She basically, wait, you're fucking getting, go away, Karma, you psycho. That Karma chick, she'll y'all, that Karma chick, if she ever messages you about me, Karma will send you messages that I have Munchausen's by proxy. She will send you emails that I'm an alcoholic. She will send you emails.
I think she already has. And I basically shut all of them down. I have several of those people that have done that too already, Katie.
So Karma is one of those people. She'll send you emails that I distribute child porn, that
Yes.
I use my child. Like, she's fucking crazy. Okay. So, yeah, Karma's insane. So now she'll probably go make a video about it because I said her name for the first time ever. So, all of the things she says about me are false, by the way. So Christy meets me and she basically pumps me up and basically convinces me Fancy is the devil, gives me all this backstory about Fancy, and then she's obsessed with Fancy. I got really kind of bored of her obsession with Fancy. I thought it was weird, but she did spend almost the totality of the 5 years that I was friends with her being obsessed with everything that Fancy
Can I ask you an honest question?
Yeah.
When you did the interview with me and Brandy, did you already know Christy?
No.
Okay. I don't care. It's not like I would be mad at you. I'm just simply trying to figure out when it was, where you came in exactly, because I've always had conflict with that.
No, I didn't. I had not spoken to her yet.
Okay, cool. That's all I needed to know.
And I can't remember if she reached out to me or if I reached out to her. She told me that she reached out to me, but I thought I reached out to her.
I thought you did after you talked to me and Brandy.
Yeah, this summer, she told me that last summer, whatever, 2023, she told me that she reached out to me. So I don't know. She knew who I was though, because she watched my Duggar content. Anyway.
Well, we also had a person in our group on our team. Is her name Lauren, something like that knew you from the reporting on the Munchausen by proxy stuff. So Christy knew who you were because that girl had been trying for months to tell us to talk to you, and that's how I found you originally, because you had something wrong that on one of the videos you had made. And it was something simple. I was just like, oh, hey, you've got that wrong. I just wanted to help you. That was how I found you. And then you requested to do an interview with me, and I didn't even know you were the same person as the girl that chick was telling me about. And so once I figured all that out, that's when I think that Christy knew who you were for a good long time before you even started talking about all this. Katie.
Yeah, I mean, I actually covered legitimate cases of Munchausen, not cases. So
yeah, that was how I was watching you. That's how I knew about you.
yeah, there was like a case in Texas I covered for a while, and then
That's Anita?
yep,
Yeah.
and then Lacey Spears.
Yep.
So yeah, I had knowledge about like the situation, but then I also had a child with conditions, and so
Right.
my interest was not that I was doing it. It was more like when I was in these Facebook groups as a mom that had a child with disabilities, I noticed there was mothers in there that were clearly lying.
I'm not shouting at all, honey.
And Lacey Spears happened to be in one of our feeding tube groups, and so that whole thing
Oh,
kind of
really?
yeah.
Oh, see, I had personal conversations with her, but man, I didn't know you knew her back then. That's crazy.
I wasn't in the groups. Like I was in the groups. I didn't see her like
Right.
because I think didn't he die in
2005.
No. It was like 2012, 13.
2013. You're right. 2013.
Ron didn't have a feeding tube yet, but he got a feeding tube I think in 2015. But when I got into the groups because he was having feeding issues and he was failing to thrive, she had just been arrested, and so
See, I've always thought that they took part of her stories and made them theirs.
maybe. But there was a couple of women in that same group that were doing it. Then there was a girl that was in Minnesota that did. Lacey did. Her name was Megan. She was putting salt into her child's feeding tube. She got arrested.
Uh-huh.
So that's how my thing. I didn't even know that existed, and I thought it was insane that people would do that because I was like, I was a mom that actually had a sick child. Like, why would you want your child to be sick? Like, this is crazy. So there was like in the span of like a couple years, there was like 3 separate people in groups that were on Facebook that were in communities I was associated with that had moms that were either arrested or had killed a kid. So I'm like, okay, there's something here. So that's how I started reporting on it. The salt. So I ended up speaking to Christy, and Christy was really mad about the act, like very angry. And Gypsy was really angry because one, didn't make money, but they really didn't like it. That it looked like Christy. I don't think Christy was even mentioned in the act. I didn't watch the act.
She wasn't in the act, and that's why. Okay, so when they got so upset about it and they couldn't stop it, and it came out, that's when Ken was exposed right about around the same time. Oh my God, I love the dinos. Right around the same time, and it was his own fault that he and his mother got him exposed, and so they were reaching out for those different things. And Christy, that's about the time that Gypsy told Christy she no longer wanted her to do any more interviews, but we had already talked with In Touch, and we were setting up an 8-part series to debunk the act. And so Christy had to pull out of it because Gypsy was so worried about everything and she didn't want her doing them. And so that was how I got pushed into the spotlight of being the quote unquote family spokesperson. I didn't make that role for myself. That's what Christy did.
So Christy was very strategic while Gypsy was incarcerated, because Gypsy, if anyone's ever had direct contact with her, I have, Fancy has, we can speak to this in our own position. If you're in Gypsy's circle, you have to walk on eggshells with her.
Yeah.
Because she is psycho. There's
yeah.
she will cut you off and literally just go vicious on you for no reason. And it can be the slightest thing.
So everything that I was saying in that 8-part series with In Touch, though, Christy goes, well, you get the questions and I'll help you answer them. And then you can go back. Yeah.
So Christy was using you
Yes.
because she didn't want Gypsy to get mad at her.
Right.
And that's what Christy does, is
Yes.
she uses other people to speak for her so that she has to avoid the wrath of Gypsy Blanchard.
Yes.
Because
And then she goes back and plays Gypsy the other way. And at the time she was playing Ken as well. So she was using playing the three of us in all different ways back then.
And if you haven't wondered, if you're still wondering by now, yes, Christy is a narcissist. She's a 100% narcissist. So she pits people against each other. She tells fantastical tales. She employs people to do her dirty work. With Fancy, she did it because, she didn't want to upset Gypsy and she needed a spokesperson. She needed a break. And with me, she needed to use Vicky or other people because she was under contract with Melissa Moore. So her New York is where she couldn't talk to anyone because of Melissa Moore.
Except that Melissa Moore has been around since 2015.
I know,
but she tries to pretend that she wasn't.
Right, I know. And she comes up with all of these different reasons to have other people speak for them and fight their battles for them so that it's not her voice being used. And so basically Gypsy isn't angry at her.
Right.
And then while Gypsy was incarcerated, she was telling everyone all of Gypsy's business. And all of it wasn't good stuff. And if anyone knows Christy, I'll tell you the truth. And you probably know this too. She does not speak very kindly of Gypsy, does she?
She does not care what the story is about Gypsy. She cares about being paid for the story about Gypsy. That's it.
And she doesn't particularly like Gypsy.
No, not at all.
She doesn't like Gypsy at all. When you see her on camera pretending about loving her and giving her hugs and being all of that, that's just fake.
Yep.
It's all fake. They fight all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Gypsy is always angry at Christy, and they fight about the same things though. So Christy and Gypsy are kind of similar. They both can't stay out of drama, and so they end up fighting about what the other is doing to cause drama.
And see, if I had never turned on Christy, if I had never called Christy out, because the first thing I called her out on was that prescription pad. That was the first time I saw Christy blatantly lying and skirting an issue that I knew factually was wrong. And I called it out. And then that's when she started attacking me, and I began seeing all these schemes that she had been doing all along. And that's when I called her DD 2.0. And that made her so
Nellie
mad.
Yeah, Nellie, who knows her,
Yeah.
and he said that Christy's worse than Dee Dee.
She is. And that was the whole thing, though. If I had never said anything bad about Christy, if I had just left it to all the shit about Gypsy, and I exposed all of Gypsy's medical records, and I exposed the whole case file, and I exposed that she was the one who actually put the jabber in Dee Dee's back, let's say, Christy wouldn't have cared. It was all because I dared to say something about Christy. And if you don't believe me, go to CaseNet, look up my case in Missouri where they're hitting me with defamation, read the whole thing, and in there, ask yourself, why is Rod and Mia even involved in this? And how is this even about Gypsy? It's all about Christy. That's what it's about.
Christy was as we're going back in time, as you remember, in the Facebook groups, everyone was calling Rod a deadbeat dad, and Christy was the wicked stepmother that basically got in between Rod's relationship with his kid. And even people that knew Rod and Dee Dee said that they had heard that it was actually Christy that was the one that made it difficult for Rod to have a relationship with Gypsy.
Yes. It wasn't Dee Dee, it was her.
Dee Dee, it was her. And so Dee Dee had a right to be angry with Rod. He was on rugs, he was unreliable, he wasn't paying child support, he had a history of violence. She had every right to say what she said about him. She had every right to like take him to court. But every time they went to court, they viewed that as retaliation, and they decided it was because every time Christy and Dee Dee got into a fight, they went to court, and that's not true.
Okay, but Katie, do you have any proof of that though? Because
No.
I'm telling you, all I have is one court case,
There's three.
one time.
Three. 93, 95, and 99.
Now, see, I don't have all those. I could not find them.
Yeah, they're in Lafourche.
I'll
So
look again because I've looked and looked.
they're under Rod's name. And you can find him. There's 2 divorce cases. There, he was back behind in 93, he was back behind in 95, and then finally in 99, he was charged with criminal non-support.
I think I only got the 99 one.
And he didn't agree to increase his child support. That's a fucking lie. And he also wasn't paying child support out of the goodness of his heart. He was paying his arrears.
Yes.
He was like tens of thousands of dollars behind child support.
Yes.
And that's why he was paying still while Gypsy was an adult, because he still owed money. And they were so angry at Dee Dee for daring to have a child that needed money and for him bothering her that they did this whole narrative with Mike as a defense to smear Dee Dee and make her the evil, wicked mom who abused Gypsy so they could cover up their neglect
Yep.
and the fact that they knew about the fraud.
Yes.
They knew about the fraud. They all knew about the fraud. Everyone knew about the fraud. Gypsy knew about the fraud. In chapter 2, Gypsy tells everyone she knew about the fraud.
Yep.
And Gypsy lies if she says that she was not allowed to walk around in that house. Did you see how cluttered that fucking house was? There was
There's also no track marks for the wheels of the wheelchairs.
Right. She's just
And she
lying.
would have had complete atrophy of her muscles if she had not been walking.
Correct. Okay. So
Just saying.
the entire narrative of Munchausen's is crafted by MJ Pack in that stupid Facebook group. But Sheriff Arnott, is that his name is?
Yeah.
But in 2016, this was right before the plea deal, he says there's a lot of speculation online that it's Munchausen's by proxy. But it's pretty clear. And I think as we go to trial, you will see that's not the truth.
Yes.
He said, if you see the evidence that we have, you will see that this was fraud
Fraud.
and that Gypsy was a part of the fraud and
Yes.
was a participant.
And in the beginning, most people only have seen the clip where Arnott says, nothing is as it appears or whatever, the famous quote. But what you don't know is there's a whole 20 minutes and Starlight played it at one point in time and I found it after that. But
That's on YouTube.
yeah, it's talking about that first press conference. The press was all on the fraud. Okay. And Arnott was even talking about reopening the case of the burglary and the BB shooting. Okay. So because the press were asking about it. And he said, it appears we need to reopen these things. We're going to reopen these investigations. And then that is when Christy used MJ Pack, a local, on Thought Catalog to begin to start to change the narrative. And then she went into the largest Facebook groups and started changing the narrative. And that's how it quickly became the narrative. And the press began running with the MVP narrative and Sheriff Arnott was trying to fight that. And then the plea deal was struck and he was screwed.
Yep. He didn't agree with the plea deal.
No, neither did Hancock. Neither did any of the people in Wisconsin that dealt with her. Nobody did.
The deal was set. I think he said even that it wasn't second degree, it was first degree. It was he said it was the most premeditated case he had done.
Yes. Yes.
And there was no amount of anything that could have happened to her that would have justified it.
Right.
So, but yeah, in that 20 minutes, he talks about the fraud, but he also says, do not donate anything. Do not give gifts to this woman. Do not help this woman. Do not help this family. That's what he said.
Right. And at that time, that's when Kim Blanchard,
Hold up. He warned the public in that press conference that Gypsy was a con artist,
yes.
just like Dee Dee, and that not to trust her.
Right. And that's when, so Kim had already started, Kim Blanchard, David Blanchard's wife, not related supposedly, started the GoFundMe for the funeral and expenses and all of that. And then they had to shut it down and they refunded it all and everything. But I think they got caught doing that because guess what? All the other GoFundMes that Dee Dee ever ran, Kim Blanchard was the one who would get the payouts for it and then distribute the money to Gypsy and Dee Dee because Dee Dee did not have a bank account like that that she could put it into.
Like David Blanchard is lying. He knew that Gypsy could walk.
Yes, they all knew Gypsy could walk.
All knew that Gypsy could walk.
Aaliyah knew Gypsy could walk. They all knew Gypsy could walk.
It's just, yeah. So but David Blanchard was not involved. Okay, so no, we're not going there. So Christy painted the narrative, and then this is where the story, the lore of Christy Blanchard enters the story. So after the police have done a full sweep of the house, they've ripped apart the house, right? They've torn apart the bed. They've searched every inch of that house. They have taken photographs of the medicine cabinet. So no, Christy did not discover the medicine cabinet, y'all.
Not only did they photograph it, they freaking tagged it and collected it.
Correct. They tagged all the evidence. They tagged all the prescriptions. There's photos of everything. But Christy and Mommy Dead and Dearest would like you to believe that he's the one that actually discovered the medicine cabinet. Now, Christy and Rod had absolutely zero business going into Dee Dee's house because neither one of them were on the title and they're not related to Dee Dee. They were related to Gypsy, but they were basically estranged and hadn't seen Gypsy in like 10 years.
Okay, well, here's another reason why the story allegedly about the medicine cabinet happened. And the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think it's probably closer to the truth is why they came up with this whole thing. Oh my God, I found the medicine cabinet and I called Mike and I called him over and that whole thing. Well, from what I understand, when they were released the house, they were in there, they were doing something and the police came to collect something else or do something else. And they literally found Christy trying to take the bottles of codeine and things like that. And I think what she's told them was, oh, no, I'm taking this to her lawyer because I can't believe that she's got all of this. And this is why Gypsy did it. And that's where it began because she got caught trying to take the narcotics that were left. That's the whole thing.
She loves Xanax. Like her favorite. She also likes,
yeah.
And she loves wine. So Christy likes to call me an alcoholic, but she loves to pop Xanax and drink wine. Okay, so
No, Dee Dee was not one of Christy's bridesmaids.
no, she was not. Okay, so here's the thing. So Christy, news gets around in the Facebook groups that there's U-Hauls at the fucking house.
Right.
And Christy and Rod are fucking looting the place.
Yes.
Looting it.
Yes.
They did not have permission to be at that property. They were not the property owners. They were not family of Dee Dee.
Yeah, they're not next to Ken.
They were
Claudia
not.
would have been next to Ken.
So neighbors reported them for basically looting the house.
See, now my story makes sense.
Yes. So people are like, oh my God, there's U-Hauls there. Like, why are they there? So meanwhile, Claudia, Dorla, Evan, Tate, all the siblings, they find out they're up there, right? And initially they're like, oh, it's fine. We couldn't get up there. But then,
There's a story there.
Rod and Christy keep everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Everything.
They stole everything from Dee Dee's house of value. Stole
Yes. Everything.
everything. And fucking Claudia got a moo-moo.
Yes.
Her sister, her older sister, got a moo-moo. Okay.
So sad. So sad.
So
That's
when you hear, now the word on the street in the bayou from the people I've been speaking to is part of the reason why Claudia and Dorla are speaking more and Nellie knows Tate, I think, or someone, I don't know. Nellie's got connections too, but there are.
Nellie knows Claude Jr. No, Tate. You're right. Tate.
Yeah.
Tate is who's married to Nellie's cousin.
Yeah.
Tate Jr. Tate Jr. Not Tate Senior. Tate Jr.
Right.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why they're pissed is because this book, they knew it was coming, but Gypsy would not tell them what was in the book. And they were not supportive of the book. In fact, they wrote a letter to the pro board to not have her released. And I do think part of the reason why she went after the Blanchards in the Petries in this book is because it's retaliation for them not supporting her release.
Yes.
And so what they were not expecting was that the book would praise the Blanchard family, who basically abandoned Gypsy, and completely slam the Petries, who until Gypsy was like 14, 10 or whatever, the Petries were helping raise.
Well, yeah, and they even said that all the way up until Katrina, Dee Dee was there every Sunday. Every Sunday they got together. They still do to this day. They get together. They sit around their fire pit and everything at the Blue Little House and stuff. And they always get together. Sundays are the day. Now, Dee Dee was always kind of off in the corner and didn't associate with them very much because she was a snot. But they did have her there every week. She knew all of her cousins. Gypsy was close with all of them. This is the whole freaking story of I didn't know either side of my family is total and utter bullshit.
Yeah. So, Gypsy would like you to believe that the whole family are shitheads and fuckheads and fuck-ups. Now, it's true, like, this is a rough, they have, some of them have had rough lives, some of them have had multiple marriages, some of them have,
And criminal activities.
criminal activities, but to qualify the Petries as the criminals would be a huge disservice to the fact that Rod's dad was a career criminal.
The whole thing is that they're all criminals. Like when I sat in Bobby Petrie's, hot Bobby that we were talking about, Bobby Petrie's living room, he literally told me his dad, Claude Jr., that's who raised him when he thought it was his dad, would tell him to go out into the neighbors' yards and put antifreeze in dogs' bowls because the dogs were a menace and they were too loud, and he would do it. And he said the only reason that he is not in jail or dead is because of his daughter. It changed his entire life. His daughter did.
He could have lied too.
Right. And that's the thing is they all have there is criminal activities. And I think that what we're missing is
I want to be clear here.
there's a culture of this down there, though. That's the thing.
I would say it's more a culture of like poverty.
Yes.
And it's back. There's not the sheriff's office is very far away.
Yes.
They're like out by themselves. It's like almost like, a little lawless.
Liz, I want you guys to understand when I first went there, I have a friend who lives in over on the other side of New Orleans. I can't think of the name of it, but it's up this great big bridge that goes up and down over the harbor. And I went and stayed with her. And the very first day that I told her I was driving to meet the Blanchard family, she said, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to Cut Off." And she said, "Fancy, do you understand you're going to the end of the world?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You'll see. It's really different down there." And I can't express to you how different it is. And like you said, it's a poverty thing. Like they just do what they have to do
To survive.
to survive.
It's a socioeconomic thing. And so
Yes.
them as all criminals is unfair. Like that's not.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
There are some people that have resorted to crime, but not all of them have. There's
Right.
lots of hustling that's done, lots of conning, malingering for pills and malingering to get insurance.
Welfare, yeah.
That's also a hustle in the bayou.
Right. Another thing that they do is they like to use, they'll make up FEMA applications for when the hurricanes come through for things that were not destroyed. They'll still make the claims to get the money. Those are the hustles that they're running because, like you said, it's an impoverished area.
It's very poor. There's not a lot of job opportunities. It's like
Right.
there's not a lot of education. It's the most, in terms of like the educational system, it's the least educated part of Louisiana. Like,
Right. It's not even close to like what you would think in like Baton Rouge or New Orleans or anything like that. It is a whole different world.
yeah, it's swamp people.
It is.
So either way, if you're going to compare apples to oranges, if you're the Petries, Claude was a cad who slept around and he had lots of affairs. He had Bobby as a kid that was actually his son, but he raised him as a grandchild.
Right.
And he cheated on Emma. He basically was with Laura forever before Emma died, moved Laura in right after Emma died.
And there's even speculation that if somebody really did do something to Emma, it wasn't Dee Dee, it was Laura.
Honestly, like the whole thing about Emma dying, like even Nellie said there's no truth to that. Like
I don't think so either.
Like she was sick.
Yeah.
When you're sick, and the only person that's been floating this idea that Gypsy or that Christy's the one that planted in everything that Dee Dee killed Emma. That's Christy's.
She even admitted it on Confessions.
Yeah,
She said, I asked Claudia if, do you think she had anything to do with your mama's death? And Claudia said, well, I didn't, but maybe I do now. And the Roundup thing, I don't believe it actually happened either. I don't think so. I think that's something that Gypsy's making up now. And she could have been making it up back then.
And here's the thing: if Laura was so poisoned by Roundup, she wouldn't just be laying in her bed; she'd be in the fucking hospital.
And that's the thing, Bobby. That was the one thing in Confessions that really pissed me off about Bobby is he's like, Grandma Laura, she died a horrific death from what Dee Dee did to her with the Roundup. You mean 25 years later?
Yeah, she definitely didn't die from Roundup.
Like nothing from that. Who even how is that even
So
plausible?
long story short, for all of this, is the Blanchards, Rod and Christy, Bobby Petrie, and anyone that supports this narrative is scapegoating Dee Dee to cover up their own shit, or they have an axe to grind with the family.
Right.
So,
And if you hear stories about anyone else saying, well, Dee Dee was poisoning my mom too, and all of that, which I don't know if you guys have heard those stories, but I have. And I've got recollections of those, like text messages of people telling me this.
Bobby won't do interviews unless you pay him, and Christy won't do interviews unless you pay her.
What I was saying is that I just now found out this year, looking back into this case, that woman, the family that I talked to, the Kali family that helped them get the Habitat house and that threw them out and they moved to Slidell and all of that. And they said, oh, Dee Dee was doing credit card fraud. Dee Dee was poisoning her mom too. Well, then I find out, and every single person that I was allowed to talk to, neighbors, friends, misery friends, all of it was through Christy. I could never just talk to anybody myself. It always had to go through Christy, and she'd be like, oh yeah, I'll call them, I'll get them on with you. And so I was picked and choose who I could speak with. And so then I found out now that the wife of that man in the Kali family, and I talked to both of them, she's a freaking Petrie. That's why she's telling the story, to help them sell the narrative, because she's related with this. But she's related with this, and she's again friends with Christy. So she's trying to continue this narrative about that's the family, and she's removing herself from it.
Is to like cover up their own shit, but the truth of Gypsy's crime wouldn't actually be a viral story if we just looked at the facts of what happened.
Right.
And that Gypsy was a con artist. No one would have sympathy for Gypsy if they actually knew the facts.
Nope.
They wouldn't.
Nope.
And if you actually had an opportunity to speak to Gypsy yourself, you would realize how unsympathetic she is as a human.
Yes.
She has no remorse at all.
She has no emotions. She has no feelings. She cannot possess them. That is the thing. She pretends she as a chameleon who will change to whatever it is that will get her ahead or get her attention or get her this, whatever those things are. And she doesn't have any real nothing. There's nothing there. I don't know if you've ever met a full sociopath.
Hold up. So you guys, let's get tapping. Let's do a little surge here. Let's do some tapping and throw some hearts or roses or whatever. Get going. Get this moving. The taps have stopped. Let's get to 100K. All right. So thank you to everyone that is giving gifts tonight and that have gifted our host. Hello, Wendy. Wendy's here, but she jumped up, but she's not. You might not be there. Maybe she's not there. Okay, so there's a lot with Gypsy. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of deception. All of that. So Christy, once the Hulu act comes out, Gypsy's mad, right? And they need to tell her story. Even though
Yes, ASPD and other things are, I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer that at least, are part of the disorders common with the microdeletion. Yes, there's lots of comorbidity with this microdeletion. Yes.
And there was a woman on here last night that has a stepdaughter that they think has it, and she's a pathological liar, like Gypsy.
Right.
So, and she's hypersexual, just like Gypsy. So,
And so was her husband that they believe it came from. Yeah, so he was very, not a liar, but he was very hypersexual as well. It's very much part of this deletion.
so basically, Christy was burning bridges at every turn. You know,
Yes.
she would do a project with someone and then eventually would have a falling out with them or whatever. And once the act comes out, she's desperate. She finds Melissa Moore, who has a serial schmiller as a dad, who of course believes everything that they say, but also is a fame whore herself and likely a narcissist just like her father, because Melissa made herself famous by re-traumatizing the victims of her father by meeting them and making them feel sorry for her because her dad victimized her. That's Melissa Moore.
You realize this is slaughter? Did you mean slander? And the thing is that it didn't even come after. One did not come after the other. She met Melissa Moore. That's the first content person she ever met. The very first interview Christy did in 2015 was on the Dr. Oz show. And this is where the whole story that Katie was telling earlier about the walking and what she said, that is the interview. And I got a totally different version of the story than you got, Katie. And then I got the story about the fact that it was Dee Dee's sisters that told them that she could walk later because afterwards, like the first story I got told was that, oh, no, I misspoke. And what I said is that I meant to say I knew she could walk when she was little, and I didn't. And so that's what I was trying to correct. And it was just a slip that I didn't say when she was little. Not that, oh, Dee Dee's sisters had told us this and we just didn't think it was true or whatever. That's not the first story I got. I got that much later. But that's the thing. Everyone thinks that Melissa Moore came in, midway. She didn't. She had been lurking on this story since 2015.
She's always been in the peripheral in the background.
Yes.
But really locked in 2019, and Christy
Yes.
was promised a lot from Melissa. And so to give you guys clear understanding of why they're doing this, money. So basically, Melissa is an unethical piece of crap.
Yep.
And Melissa doesn't care about the truth really at all.
Nope.
She told them, and she knows what she's doing is a lie, you guys. She
Yes.
knows it. She knows it's all a lie. She told them, well, everyone else is making money on Gypsy. Okay. So we're going to go get your bag. And she told them they could easily make $2 or $3 million out of this.
Yes.
And she said and promised them she was going to make them famous.
Yes.
And they crafted this whole, Melissa and Christy crafted this entire, what you're seeing right now. And they plotted this for 5 years.
Yes.
Gypsy began creating social media accounts and building her TikTok and Instagram way before she was out of prison. And she didn't just blow up by accident.
No.
There were active people on TikTok that they were like working with to get the story out. And Christy was befriending creators to get them to talk about Gypsy and giving them access to her so that they felt like they had, you know, like a connection to a good story. And so it was all by design,
Yes.
and it was all for profit.
Yes.
It wasn't.
And Rachel, her friend from Inside. Oh, thank you guys so much. Rachel from Inside,
They screwed them over.
oh, I know they did. She was doing all these donation funds and things for and everything that she was making on TikTok. Rachel wasn't keeping that money. That was all going into Gypsy, just like Ryan was feeding money into Gypsy, just
Right.
like all the other guys that she was talking to.
Gypsy needed new clothing. She asked her to, and I don't know if this is what actually got her into the hole. This might have what has got her into the hole.
I know
Gypsy's,
got her in the hole, but you tell me your story. You tell me your story first.
well, I heard this might have gotten her into the hole. It was about merch.
No, they
Okay.
they made it about that so that Rachel would feel bad.
Okay.
It had
That's
nothing to do with that.
okay.
It had to do with the fact that she was allowing. So some of it had to do with the social media because she wasn't supposed to have these accounts. But what really got her in trouble was that she was getting an excess of commissary from all these donations, and so she was then sending that home to Christy, sending it to Nick, or not to Nick, to Ken, to all of them at the point in times that she could. She'd cash it out and send it home. Well, then she also allowed other people who were getting, were getting too much or couldn't accept something, she would allow them to cash out her or to put money on her books, and then she would go and buy them things, and that's not legal either. That's what ended her up in the hole. It had nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah, her book. She said that there was an escape plan that never happened.
Nope.
It wasn't an accidental reason why she was in the hole.
Nope.
In the hole because she was abusing social media and scamming people
Yes.
of money and having people on Facebook set up fundraisers and sell merchandise and do whatever.
Right.
And she wasn't supposed to be using these groups.
No, and
she-
that's what she was doing. And she
Let me finish.
okay, I'm sorry.
So she had Rachel set up a Facebook group where they would do support for her,
Mhm.
and she made Rachel believe that she didn't have enough money for clothes. And so Rachel designed a shirt so that people could have something instead of just sending her money, so they felt like they were getting something out of it, and it was like a team.
Mhm.
And then she sent photographs of all of these people in their shirts to Gypsy. Well, they found out about it, and that was one of the reasons why she ended up in the hole, is because that's how they like partially connected all of this, because they found out she was using these Facebook groups. But then what happened was that Gypsy flipped it on Rachel and said it was all Rachel's fault for doing it.
Yes.
And then they completely iced Rachel out of friendship, like cut her off. They said that she was the one that was doing this. It was her fault. She was the one that was running a scam with these t-shirts. It was her fault that like the Facebook group existed. Gypsy was not involved, even though Gypsy was writing letters and emails regularly to Rachel and telling her to share in the Facebook group, and then using that Facebook group as a way to seek donations, which was a violation of her incarceration.
Right. And this is what got her off the honor board. So for many years, the reason why she had so much freedom and was able to, have so much phone time and the stuff that she was able to do is because she was on a special ward for being a good prisoner. But then she wasn't. So she got kicked off of that. And then she got, this all happened and she got put in the hole and all of that. And they tried to use me to go around and shut down all the other Facebook groups that was not Christy's group and tried to make it seem like that was the problem. And then we found out that wasn't the problem. And that was another time that me and Christy had a huge blowout, and Dawn Brown and I had to go in and try and clean it up.
So Christy was scheming with Gypsy to get money from everyone and conning people along with Gypsy to make people believe that Gypsy needed money when she didn't.
Right.
She also got in trouble for doing the sweetheart scam.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a bunch of men sending her money, and
She was also selling her undergarments to men. Yeah, the whole thing. She was in trouble with, to my understanding, she was, tricking men and things like that in there. I mean, there is so much that we've now learned from the inmates that were inside with her.
Rachel's, you've ever seen her page, but I've actually spoken to Rachel. She's like,
I love Rachel.
yeah, she's a sweetheart.
She's a very good person.
She was told to do this. Like, Gypsy wanted her to run a TikTok page, and then Gypsy accused her of wanting clout.
Yes.
Gypsy asked her to create a Facebook group, and then Gypsy, and then she's found out that, like, he blames Rachel for doing the Facebook page for clout and blames Rachel for doing donations. When Gypsy sent a letter and said, I need new clothes, can you help me?
Right.
And then she sends out an email to everyone, all of her supporters, smearing Rachel and saying that Rachel is just a fame-chasing, jealous hater.
Right.
Sound familiar?
Yep. Yep. And that's why, okay, so what happened is when all this happened, Rachel came to me 3 years ago now. And this is when she realized what was going on. This was the first time she was like, Fancy, you're right. Melissa Moore is doing all of this stuff. I need to know, when did Melissa first meet with you? Da, da, da. We were talking about all of it. And she's like, look, I need to tell you, Gypsy hasn't even finished her GED. Like she's telling everybody she took pictures, but she's not finished. It's all about money. It's Christy running all the money, trying to get the biggest bag she can. And that's why you were set aside, is because Melissa could make the money that you couldn't make, because they had done what they did to you, and they made you this villain, and they made you into this horrible person and made you shady. And so Melissa became the new you, just like I became the new Michelle, just like Michelle became the new Aaron, the whole thing. And that was when she came to me and she was telling me everything. I mean, she was showing me all this stuff. And then they convinced her, because I said something about it on a live, and it got Rachel. They were aware that Rachel was talking to me, and I did not know that Rachel, was keeping it quiet and still trying to figure things out. I made a mistake, and I said something on the podcast that I shouldn't have said on the YouTube, and they flipped her again. They caught her. They pulled her back in. They were like, "Oh, Fancy's lying to you. Fancy's this. Fancy's that." And
they're really good at like pulling people back. And so Christy sends like warning shots to me a lot, like by having baby videos. It's all designed for me to like come calling back and apologize and say,
oh yeah, just like the post that Nina made about me, the conversation between me and Christy about Ken being sick and all of that, and then breaking up. First of all, Nina knows that that's from 2019, and she purposely hid the dates on it. But beyond that, that was used after I'd had the falling out with them to try and pull me back in again. Because Christy was like, "Oh, I need your help," because TMZ had called me. And I told them, I don't know. I'm not involved anymore. I don't know. And so Christy messages me and she's like, did TMZ contact you? And I was like, yes. And that's when she said all that to me and told me he was really sick and all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I won't say anything. It's none of my business, really. I don't really care. That's that whole thing. And she was trying to pull me back in because she needed my help at that point.
So that's why when I cut off contact with them, that's why I actually blocked them, because I don't want to ever speak to them again, because I watched her do it over and over again to people, and she got like letters from the people that had detracted from her.
Yeah. That's when I finally cut her off. When I finally cut her off was when she did the whole thing about my husband and all of that, and me cheating on him and all that she knew was a lie with Natasha. I didn't know about it until, several years after the podcast, even, that it was her. So that's when I finally had enough and blocked her, just like you did.
So, Nina, just to be clear, is claiming to be anti-Gypsy, but I need you guys to know something. There are people on Bree's team that are 100% giving her information. It may not be coming directly from Bree, but it's from that circle.
Well, for crying out loud, Dawn Brown was her mod for a while.
No, I know.
I mean, so seriously?
Dawn Brown was best friends with Christy, and she was pretending she was against Gypsy and Christy, but she wasn't really.
Right.
And, a couple of the people in the circle with Bree are giving information to Nina, and they're giving her false information intentionally.
Yes.
And they're doing this to Nina because they want Nina's career to tank. But they never contacted Nina's employer. Nina actually quit, so she wasn't fired because of them. I just want to make that clear.
Well, see, I don't know about that. The only thing I know is that the brand was tired of her not doing brand content, and they didn't want Gypsy associated with their brand. So that was what I heard happened.
Okay, so if you really like Nina, you are at the wrong place.
The wrong place.
Nina is a bully. She has been absolutely terrible to me. She steals my content, and she has no access to information. She actually is now using Pink Pony Club because she thinks she can get something from her.
Right.
But Nina is intentionally getting bad information.
Mhm.
Okay, catch me 78. Listen to this. Can you open your ears? Listen to me because I'm not lying. Listen. Christy Blanchard and Gypsy have a goal to destroy Nina. They have people in Bree's circle that are pretending to be defectors. There are friends of Christy and of Gypsy's pretending to be defectors, leaking intentionally false information to Nina so that she puts out stories to deflect from bigger things that are happening and also to make her look like an idiot. Their goal is to get Nina to have no career. They would love to get her arrested, but they want her career to be destroyed. And so they keep feeding her bad information. And because Nina does not fact check, she just runs with it. And I've tried to tell Nina this a million times that they are playing her.
I tried.
She does not listen. I have told Nina multiple times via email that Christy has been doing this for 10 years.
Yep.
She is way ahead of the game when it comes to Nina. She has been playing this game so much longer, and she plants people on both sides. And so that's why that's why Fancy's always paranoid about who people are, because she knows what Christy does. I know what Christy does. And I've told Nina, like, they're doing this to discredit you. And she still, to this day, will not let go that she got bad information. And she'll never walk back that she got wrong information. Because part of it is she wants to keep getting the information.
Yeah.
So I'm not down with, I've tried to like let Nina know she doesn't care. And so she blocked me when I tried to tell her what they were doing.
That's what she did to me. And then she started vilifying me like she's vilifying you.
Yeah, so I sent Nina literally screenshots of them talking shit about her, screenshots of what they were doing to her, screenshots of what their goals were to her, screenshots of them sending her bad information intentionally, and she blocks me.
Right.
Make it make sense.
She doesn't listen to me.
Like, I have no reason to lie to her. Like, this is what they're doing to you, Nina.
Yep.
So they can't do this to every creator, though. And that's the problem. Some creators will just run with anything and they don't care. Just because they want to have the tea, they want to have something that goes viral. But other creators won't do it. And so they're very picky about who they do this to.
Right.
I have posted all of these screenshots. I have videos about this from this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that knows me knows this is true. I gave all of this to Nina. I did an entire video on it. If you're coming into this live and you can see them playing people. Okay, so it's not that I don't like Nina. It's that Nina is being played and she doesn't care. So what does it say about Nina?
If you're asking for my email, it's tipsforgoodwives@gmail.com, all spelled out.
Mine's tips at withoutacrystalball.com. I've had that for like
Tips too. That's funny.
for my website.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't start out being hateful towards Nina. I liked
I
Nina.
don't have anything against Nina. I just wish Nina would be honest that she knows she's being played.
And that's the thing is, like, I was helping Nina and Nina was helping Rachel. And I was so respectful of the fact that she was helping Rachel tell Rachel's story, because I knew at the time I couldn't help Rachel because it wouldn't be received the right way because of everything, you know? So I was so thankful for her. And we were supposed to work together in the beginning. And then all this craziness started, and I kept trying to tell her the same thing. I'm like, dude, you're being played. You're not understanding. And
You know what else I told her? I said, Nina, every time you get a leak like this, it's because something else has happened that they're covering up. And
Right.
I said, when she did the Ken and Gypsy broke up, that was because Gypsy got in trouble with parole
Right.
for basically stalking Ivory Rose Groswild. So they're just deflecting from Gypsy getting in trouble with parole.
Right.
And so in order to do that, they leaked a dumb story
Right.
that they broke up because they know everyone will talk about it. And Gypsy doesn't care if it's true or not. She just wants people talking about her.
Well, and it's the same thing that they did with my court case. They knew they had no leg to stand on. They knew. They knew. They leaked, and they leaked that through who? Nina. And that's the thing. Like, Nina should, instead of doing what Nina did, all Nina had to do was message me and say, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but they've got a court case going against you, and here it is. That's all she had to do. She did not have to do what she did. And they used her because she thought, oh, I've got some big thing, and they thought this was going to be a huge case. They convinced everyone that this was going to be huge. And they had nothing. Nothing.
And the thing, like, what Nina doesn't understand is, like, that video that she made about Ken and Gypsy and how Ken's sick of it. Dude, they're, like, and Vance, that relationship is dead in the water. It's been dead in the water this whole time.
Yeah.
So if you guys are, like, waiting for them to break up, it's going to happen. They've already almost broken up, like, 7 times. They're not together because they want to be together. Gypsy wanted to get pregnant. She trapped Ken. She told Ken she couldn't ovulate. Everything she accused her mom of doing to Rod, she actually did to Ken.
Yes.
That's why Rod warned Ken
Yep.
to not get her pregnant.
Yep.
So she got pregnant, but she didn't really think about the fact that she and Ken didn't really know each other that well, hadn't really spent any time in the real world, and hadn't considered that they might not actually get along. And as they started spending more time together, guess what? They don't actually get along. They have nothing in common.
Well, because Gypsy can't get along with anyone. That's the problem. She's not going to get along with anyone. I don't like Ken. Trust me, I don't like Ken. But I feel bad for the guy because now he's trapped in this shit. And she did it on purpose. And I tried to warn him back in the day. Like, dude, this is not what you want to saddle yourself to. But, I'm just the bad fancy, always trying to meddle in shit when all I've ever tried to do is be fucking logical. Like,
I think Bree is here under the name Melissa Marie Hayes. Hi, Bree.
well, I don't even care if it's or not. Why don't I like Ken? Because Ken's a douche.
Don't take the bait. You have to learn not to take the bait.
Because look, I don't like Ken.
Nope.
There's a whole reason why. If you guys want to know why, no. Please let me say this. If you want to know why, go read my text message between Christy and Ken and I back from 2019 on my Patreon. Go read them all. You'll understand why I don't like Ken. That's all you need to know. That way I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay, I'm just gonna tell everyone, like, don't take the bait. Don't take the bait.
I know.
Okay,
There's very big reasons why, and I've expressed them before. You can go read them.
I understand. Okay, so, and someone said when the host asks Fancy to stop and she doesn't. Fancy's her own human being, and I respect the fact that she's her own human being, and she also respects the fact that I will tell her to stop.
She told me to stop. I wanted to finish the fact that you can go read it somewhere else if you want to know. That's the whole thing. That's all I wanted to say. I don't want to get into it. I'm not going to discuss Ken. There's plenty of information out there. Just go find it.
Is to just, we keep things chill. And Fancy, I understand her because she has ADHD. Her mind goes 100 miles a minute. She goes off on tangents. She has lots of information and she gets sidetracked on stories. So I understand how her brain works. Okay. So I get it. So, Ken is just not he has no motivation. That's the thing. Ken is a bartender with no motivation of really doing anything other than that. He is a heavy drinker. He has a history of drug use. The reason why Gypsy can't spend more than 2 days with him is because he has some warrants. I can't know if it's in Texas or Florida. But also he wouldn't have never passed a parole check.
Right.
And that was sort of another reason why Gypsy's very strategic. And the reason why she needed Ryan was because Ryan looked good on paper.
Yes.
Okay. So, but back to Gypsy and Ken, like they almost break up on a daily. They don't like each other very much. If you see their videos, lives that they've done, they really don't like each other. Like he's trapped.
You can see the body language. It's not hard to see this.
The way that he kisses her is not how you kiss someone that's in love. And that's been something that Gypsy has known this whole time. And one of the reasons why Gypsy and him almost broke up is because he doesn't look at her or kiss her or really appear to be in love with her the way that he did with his ex-girlfriend. And it's a fact because he's not with her for the right reasons. Ken
I think it was almost like a wanting of the strange, to be honest with you.
Ken like broke up with his girlfriend of 5 years. And
Yeah, but I'm saying that's what I'm saying is it's like I think he thought he was going to come down for a weekend, get the Gypsy fix that he, oh, I slept with Gypsy Rose Blanchard and da-da-da-da-da, and let me see what this is going to be like. And then I think he had planned to just go on back about his life, and that didn't happen.
Right. So she basically trapped him. They weren't even talking about being really in a relationship. And then she got pregnant.
Right. I mean, they were just friends, according to them.
So she's like now stuck because Gypsy has like serious pride issues. And so because she left Ryan basically for Ken and gave up her marriage, I have screenshots of her literally telling a content creator that she regrets leaving Ryan for Ken. That was like,
oh, Jesus.
That was like this fall.
You can't make this shit up, folks.
I literally have the screenshots. I can't release them, but I will tell you that they are real. And then they asked her, like, well, do you think if you broke up, you could get back with, I think the marriage would have lasted or whatever, if Ken didn't get around? And she's like, I don't know, maybe it would have lasted longer, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe I made the wrong choice.
Of course you did.
Then a couple weeks later, she's then threatening Ryan with extortion because she's claiming that he has nude photos of her he's going to leave. And she's trying to get him on a felony. And then Ryan is telling Ken that Gypsy told him that Ken was gay.
No comment.
And Ryan's like, do you want the video clip of Gypsy calling you gay, homo? And I was like, he literally said homo. What the fuck? And then Ken is like, okay, limp dick.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I just can't with these people. Where did they all come from, KJ?
Oh,
I'm telling you, they're like from another fucking planet.
well, so Gypsy's favorite story is that she likes to emasculate the guy she's with. And so with Ken, she calls him gay, which feeds into that rumor. And then with Ryan, she basically says the D wasn't fire and calls him limp.
Right.
Now, for years, she told Christy before she got out of prison that Nick couldn't actually get it up because the thing. But
Right, and now we've got a whole nother story about all of that too.
A vapor of blood, which didn't happen.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! The stories she makes up just
They're insane.
where do they come from? Like, who comes up with this?
She just needs to. She has this need for like attention, and she thinks if she adds more salacious details, it'll give her the attention she wants. But what she doesn't realize is now her details are turning into demented and delusional and sick.
Yes.
And most of the people that are reading this book are like, this is a side of Gypsy I never needed to know existed.
Exactly.
Like, this is a side of Gypsy that definitely unalived her mom.
Yep.
I mean, Ethan, True Crime Ethan, who was pretty neutral on her,
Yeah.
read the book and he's like, no one needs to read this book, literally ever. This is the most disgusting book I've ever read.
Yeah.
Like, he was totally chill about Gypsy. And then he read that book and he was like, no.
I'm telling you, this book is going to be the downfall. This book is horrible. It's bad.
And the book was a brainchild of Christy. And the book is partially crafted through stories that Gypsy was told by Christy.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
and information that Vicky was able to get out of her by remembering certain memories.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So Vicky tells her, just remembering the truth is therapy, girl. Just tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. And that's where this whole story was created.
Oh my God, Katie.
But I can tell you for a fact that the Claude story is false.
I know it's false. I know it's false. I know it's 100% false.
I know, and the book is for her daughter. Do you really want your daughter to read about your diaper-filled thing, the biscuits and
Right.
I didn't see the barbecue sauce part, but I hold that back.
Oh my God, that's just that part's disgusting. It goes on way too fucking long.
And all the stuff in there where she's trying to act like Nick made her do shit. Like, is she going to ignore the fact that there were literal scripts that she sent to him and that
You know, he sent those to her, though. Don't you know, Katie? Don't you know?
yeah. Well, actually, the facts of the case that were not allowed at trial showed that they had flipped from dominant to submissive.
Yes,
and
they
Nick was the submissive at the time of the crime.
Yes, he's a switch.
And she
Jeez.
was sending him videos to tell him what to do and how to do it.
Yes.
And how is and how is this your whole life survival story? It's your own type of freak ops. Like, how is this a story of survival? There's no surviving in this story. All she talks about is disgusting stories. And
Sexual fantasies.
and what is she actually doing in that book that would inspire a victim?
Right, well, and now we're back to Nick is the only one, when we all know that this is a lie.
Even though at the end of the book, after she demoralizes him and drags him and falsely accuses him of crap again, she then says Nick was her victim at the very end in the final back chapters, but it's at the very end of the book.
I haven't gotten that far then. Jesus,
The
Josephine.
book is over. You find it there. You won't find it in the pages of the book. It's in the resources that are at the end of the book.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and it basically says that Nick was her victim and she used him as a tool. And in the epilogue, basically, she says the whole point of the book was to control the public narrative.
I'm aware. I'm aware. I just, I can't with this book.
When people say that, like me, why are you so obsessed? I'm like, well, she's the one that keeps doing this.
Right.
And if you have
That's like asking you, well, why are you watching the documentary that just came out on Netflix? Like, you're so obsessed because you watch every Ted Bundy documentary. Okay, but they keep making Ted Bundy documentaries. Obviously, other people are watching the Ted Bundy documentaries too. So
the actual crime is they never determined who actually did the stabbing. It was just based on confession. They didn't do the forensics to figure out.
I'm aware.
Huh?
And I'm aware, and if you read the autopsy, it is very much so very suspicious because several of them are done by a right-handed person and Nicholas is left-handed.
Well, and her DNA was on there. Her DNA, with blood and saliva, was mixed on the knife.
Yep.
So
Yep.
why was her blood and saliva and DNA on the knife?
Right.
But because they had a confession from Nick, they didn't have to do all the forensic shit.
They didn't have to do anything. They did no investigation whatsoever. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They even have all the evidence, but they never tested it. They didn't do anything with it. They left, and that some of it was tested, but the things that were tested was so preliminary that by the time they would have sent it off and gone more things tested, but then the deal was done. And they didn't, and that's why hardly any evidence is actually presented in Nick's trial. It's all about the text messages and all of that. It is not evidence, like massive concrete forensic evidence.
I mean, they just
Testify for him. It puts the nail in the coffin. Like,
it's pretty wild when you think about it because she it's just insane actually. Because they didn't have to do the investigating because they got people to confess.
look, okay. Is it too late for the FBI to file charges for all the scamming and frauds? Yes. But what isn't too late is that she perjured herself.
The perjury is already.
Perjury run out too? Okay, so perjury ran out too. Okay, but what didn't run out was the federal charges of
For hiring a hitman.
Yep, hiring a hitman and mailing the weapon across state lines. That's mail fraud. That's mail problem.
Well, that's mailing to. It's a part of
Right, and it's also a federal offense though to do that through the mail system.
But the FBI would be inclined to do that if they believe that justice hadn't been done. And
Right.
from the standpoint of the state of Missouri, one person is serving life. And as far as criminal cases like this, sometimes that's all they care about, as long as it's one person. There was a really high profile case here, and I spoke to the DA about it. And there was a woman that basically instigated the whole thing, but she was never charged. And why? Because she was a witness for the three guys that did it. And he said, I had to debate, did I want to have a witness? Or did I want a conviction?
Yep. It's one of the reasons why Carla Homolka, the Ken and Barbie killers, are unalivers. That's why she got the deal she did, was because she testified against Paul Bernardo.
Yep.
They called it the deal with the devil.
So Gypsy's deal is basically a deal with the devil. It's
Yeah, it's exactly that.
And Gypsy's
wants prison reform, and what she wants is the justice system to make it seem that people that actually give someone the idea to kill would not be considered a murderer. That's her whole motive.
Well, in that case, then Pam Smart would be released eventually, finally.
I mean, that's her to this day, and she said it during the interrogation that she didn't do it because he did it.
Yeah.
I only asked him. That's not actually doing it in her eyes.
But I don't believe that for a second. So.
But that's how she protects her, like.
Yeah, it's the lie that protects her, but I think it's a lie nonetheless. So.
She has to tell the lie to protect her guilt and protect her, like, the ego that she's designed of herself, that she's a good girl.
Do you know if they got the cube or not? Or do you go back to the cube, the car that Dee Dee had? Did Christy and Rod get that too, or did they give it back to the dealership?
I think
You
that
don't
got repossessed, honestly.
See, I really want to. There's things.
She had a loan on it.
Yeah, I know, but I just wonder if they took it or not because I was trying to figure out some things about the car.
I mean, if Dave could have taken the house, they would have taken the house, for crying out loud.
They tried to.
I mean, so if you've gotten this far in this live, it's all Christy's fault. Remember when Rod said, if Ryan and Gypsy break up, it's your fault?
Yeah.
If Gypsy becomes a star and everyone starts hating her, and she goes, and Christy puts her money on a pathological liar to be her ticket to fame, it's your fault. Christy.
Yeah.
She's crazy.
Yeah. And so Rod still gets to walk away like, well, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
Me. I didn't do nothing wrong. I think
I wonder what Dylan and Mia, I already said this last night, but Dylan doesn't support this. He wants nothing to do with it.
Right.
Dylan, and the reason why Gypsy doesn't talk about Dylan is because he doesn't like her. And the reason why Gypsy won't say Nicolette's name is because Nicolette doesn't like her. And Mia
don't like her either, to be honest.
Mia doesn't like her either. Mia's just playing for the cameras and appeasing her mother.
Well, because Mia signed a contract.
Yep.
And when her contractual obligation is up, I bet you anything Mia's going to take off just like Dylan did.
The problem with Mia was she was too young to understand at the time, you know?
She was 13 when this happened.
She was a child.
She was a child, and I'm heartbroken for Mia. Like,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, out of all of them, I truly cared and liked Mia. Now, I've only met Dylan a couple of times, but I had more interaction, not necessarily with Mia, but Christy sharing Mia's life with me. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't ever talk to Mia, but I knew everything about her because Christy told me everything.
Well, I did. I talked to Mia several times when I went down there. She went to dinner with me and my daughter.
Okay, hold up.
So yeah,
I don't want you guys to blame Mia in this. Like,
No.
Mia's benefiting from this too. Amy, that is like kind of victim shaming because Mia's actually a victim in this. Like, she's a victim of her mother, and she is literally behind the scenes, not supporting any of this. But she actually has a contract that she can't disparage Gypsy or anyone,
right,
while she's under contract.
right. She literally cannot say anything.
She can't say anything. She has to play the part because she's under contract.
And then on top
Now,
of
that doesn't apply to
she's
Ken.
better a bunch of
Ken and
lies.
Gypsy broke up. They could say something.
What?
God knows exactly who Gypsy is. In fact, in June or July, Christy said, Rod told me the other day that Gypsy's worse than Dee Dee. Well, there you are, Wendy. Maybe she fell asleep. Is Wendy there?
I don't know.
No, I was dead asleep. Huh?
I was gonna wonder. I was like, did she fall asleep?
I was dead asleep.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Oh my god. Sorry about that, ladies.
That's
No,
okay.
you can go. Why don't you go to bed, hon?
What is that?
You can go to bed.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Good night, y'all.
Mia was
Right.
so yes, Mia was of age when the contracts were signed. But at the time that the contracts were signed, Gypsy was not out of prison. Okay,
They had a lot more control over her.
Mia did not know what she knows now. She did not witness all of this, and she was not a part of all of her mother's bullcrap or her sister's shit. She was a typical kid doing her own stuff. She went off to college. She has a boyfriend. You know,
Do you remember when Mia said on the show, you guys, when she made a comment to Christy and Gypsy that these were morals that she just didn't have?
Yes.
That wasn't just to Gypsy, that was to Christy too.
Yes.
Because,
Well, if you watch the extended version of that, she had a lot more to say.
oh, I never saw it released.
Ooh, it's a lot. She basically broke her mom off right there. She said, because Gypsy said something to her, and she said, you know what? It's because she just sits here and she does this and she keeps going on and on and on, Gypsy. And she's lying and she's doing this. And you know what? I've just had it. I've had it with you both. I mean, like she full on laid into them. That didn't make it into the show, but it did make it in outtakes now. It's out there.
Where?
I don't know. I saw it. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. I'll send you a link because I saw it and I was shocked by how much further that conversation really went.
I don't think there was an extended. There was a pretty heated confrontation in the actual episode.
No, this was put out later, afterwards, after the show came out. This was out there, and it was put into outtakes of the show. I have it. It's more than what was seen on the show.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a longer clip.
So, long story short, you guys, it's all Christy Blanchard's fault.
Yep.
That was like the long story. Thank you for being here.
It's all Christy Blanchard's fault. And damn that Melissa Moore.
They're all lying to you and they all know that they're lying.
So now I'm hearing this story that Titania made up the bone marrow documents to give to Melissa.
Yeah, Noli said that on my live. I told you.
But I don't think that that's true.
It is true because there was
How
no
do you know?
no.
But how do you know, Katie? How?
Because it didn't happen. They were still in Louisiana when she was supposed to have cancer.
5, yes.
Yes, she was still around all of them. She was never. They
Okay.
didn't shave. No, they
Then
didn't even
she
shave her.
needed to shave her head. It's not that kind of thing. And her hair was always short back then.
Okay, I don't want to have this
I
conversation.
mean, I just don't understand. I'm just telling you, we don't know one way or the other.
No, we do. I know.
You
And I don't. No, I don't want to have this debate. I don't.
Then tell me why you know that Titania.
No, I don't want to have the debate, Fancy. Okay.
I need to know why you think that Titania actually did what Nellie's saying. That's because
Fancy, I don't want to have the conversation.
well, then you need to talk to me privately about it because
Okay, we can talk about this privately.
Well, I just don't understand where that came from because I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, that's the only thing. And if that's the truth, then I will expose the hell out of that. But if it's not true, then we have to accept the fact that it's not true. You know what I mean? Okay.
I'm not going to get mad, Mom, to Boog. Like, what are you talking about?
She's not mad, and I pushed. I
Fancy pushes, and I just try to set boundaries. That's it. Like,
That's it. You're pushing. You're fine. I'm going to need some solid proof that Titania did that. Like, I just need that for my own personal closure on that because I was the closest to Ty out of everyone in this, and she hurt me really bad.
Oh my God, Mom to Boog must be free. She's like, I see screenshots coming. I don't have anything to expose about Fancy. Like, she's irrelevant in the grand scheme of like Gypsy's like crime. You know, like I'm not here to. I don't need to expose Fancy.
There's nothing left to expose about me.
There's nothing to expose.
There's nothing left. They've done it all. They've put it all out there. I know they'd like you to believe there's more. There's nothing. I have 3 misdemeanor charges in my entire life for really stupid bullshit shit. I am a mom who has struggled my whole life to try and, help my kids and take care of them because we didn't have money. We were a young couple in a very expensive area. And that's the thing. That's the truth. We've been stable for many, many years since then. And they like to make me look like I'm a lunatic. And I'm not. I'm not crazy at all like this. They've driven me crazy. And they would like you to believe that there's some more fucking horrible shit to me. There is nothing.
Yeah. Right.
I am just a mom who has had a family that struggled, just like anyone else. We've struggled with mental health. We've struggled financially. We're just your average, everyday, middle of the road American family.
Right.
That's it. That's it. They would like you to believe I'm a scammer, I'm a con artist, I've done all this horrible shit. No. Vicky was the one who did that whole thing about my GoFundMe for going back to school. Vicky is the one who put that out everywhere, made it seem like I was conning people. And the only person who donated to my GoFundMe was mine and Craig's very good friend from here. He gave me the entire $1,000 so I could go back to school. He didn't know he could just give it to me.
Fancy, you don't need to. No,
I'm
you
just
don't need
saying,
to.
that was Vicky though. That was
I know.
all Vicky.
You don't need to defend yourself. Like, this
It's just
isn't.
tiring.
Nobody here is questioning you. Like,
I know.
there's no-
I know it's just tiring that they keep seeing making people think that there's so much more about me when there really isn't. There's nothing
It's all
else.
reflection. Why do you think they're trying to say that I have Munchausen's by proxy? Come on.
Right. They're trying to say I lied. Oh, and I think it's really funny about my
Talking about a
contract.
frivolous lawsuit that was filed against me because by alleged bullying.
Right. Well, they filed a frivolous lawsuit against me. And then that's the really funny thing. I got the contract that Lifetime is sending out to all these content creators. And if you're a content creator and you're signing that fucking contract, you're a moron. I'm sorry. You are a complete and utter moron. It literally tells you that they have the right to portray you in any light they see fit, and that they can cut and clip and do anything they want to all of your content, anything about you.
Okay,
and
but okay, let's end this live with this. Because I need to have a snack. I need to go to bed because I'm
the
doing a
only thing
podcast.
well, can I finish just about the contract real quick? It's like 2 more sentences.
Okay.
Okay. So when Melissa Moore met me, one of the things that she said was that my contract was one of the worst she's ever seen. If you go look at my contract and you look at the Lifetime contract, first of all, you'll understand that mine is a very standard contract. And second of all, you'll see how much worse hers is, because they really do mean to do harm to people. I only just wanted to tell a fucking story.
Yeah. So,
That's
okay, that's it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so here's the warning sign for everyone. Nina, you're being used. Wake the fuck up. Stop
Sure.
running deflection for them. And stop with the body shaming all of the people that are content creators. It just makes everyone. And finally, Bree, you're in the long line of dead bodies of content creators that this family has chewed up and spit out.
and she doesn't even know it yet.
You are probably 9,842.
Her and
Don't
MJ
worry.
Pack.
Don't worry, Bree. They're paying attention to the fact that your husband's a felon. Don't worry, Bree. They already know about your warrants. They know about your unstable mental health. They know about your rug problem. And they will use all of that against you. And they will also say, when you wise up, Bree, and you realize who these people are, they will also say that you are just jealous
Yep.
and a hater that only use them for clout.
Yep. And if you don't believe me and Katie, just go look at Megan Pack, who they continue to keep using.
Yep. Oh, Nancy and I have
And they
been-
knew all about her too, all about her husband, all about her drinking, all about her wanting to be so
They did on
famous.
everyone, even
They knew
if they're
everything.
on their same side. So don't worry, Bree. They have a whole folder on you,
Yep.
and they're going to use it against you.
Just depends on when they feel like they need to.
Yep.
And
And don't
I
worry,
think it's
Bree.
coming soon. I think it's coming soon.
Yeah, Bree, your time is actually up pretty soon. You are becoming a liability.
Yeah. Not that you weren't a liability to begin with, to be honest with you.
But I noticed that Bree was in photographs at the book signing, but Christy was in some photos, but she wasn't with Bree. And I'll tell you one thing, Bree.
No, and just Katie was in a picture too.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing, Bree. You're not on Christy's side. If she's not in a picture with you, you're on borrowed time. You're on borrowed time. All right, you guys, thank you for joining. Sorry, Jake, you didn't get a lot to share here.
No, it's fine. I miss you, Sheena.
I miss you, Sheena. Sheena falsely claimed that she did pay Ethan $50, but it was for another faith, which is stupid because we know there's no other faith.
It's okay, Sheena, that you couldn't afford me, sweetheart. It's fine.
Don't worry, Sheena. You're messing with a girl that has a trust fund. We'll get you. We got you. Good night, y'all.
Good night, Katie. Good night, Faye.